So the first thing that I noticed was the way that the characters spoke in the play, like in the epilogue, when Dionysus was talking about how Cadmus gave over his rights as king to Pentheus. He referred to Pentheus as his daughter's son, which is basically Cadmus's grandson. And then later in the play, Cadmus actually referred to Pentheus as his grandson, but then went back and said, "Oh, my daughter's son." So they kind of went back and forth in like the language they would use, and that was like kind of interesting because it's like they knew like the term that we're familiar with, but like would use like a different way of saying it. And so the main value that I noticed was religion played a big thing, especially the Pentheus. When in scene one, when Cadmus and Theirsis was going to worship this new god and dance with and go dance for him also, that's when Pentheus got concerned that everyone else was going to like follow in and start worshiping this other god and worshiping his religion and what he wanted them to do, and kind of forget their roots and what they were supposed to be doing, which also falls to the second value, in my opinion, that it was like order. And when I say order, I mean like Pentheus had like this set thing of like a civilized like union, I guess you could call it. Like men had their roles, women had their roles, they did it day in day out, and like nothing changed, like it was always that. And then when Dionysus came and kind of like had this irrational behavior come over the women, of them like dancing for him and then breastfeeding like animals, it kind of made like a clash happen between, and that's what made Pentheus feel like everything was kind of like out of order at this point, like everything was like falling apart. So on page 55, Theirsis stated that it is not Dionysus who will force virtue on women in matters of sex. You must look for this in nature. And when he was saying this, he was saying that the reason Pentheus thought that these women were going into these woods and having sex is because his mind was giving him the assumption of that, and that the women were celebrating their body, which was honorable to Dionysus because that's what he wanted them to do. And at this point, like, this kind of is what led to his death in a way, because he had this dirty mind and dirty thoughts and then that led to his curiosity, which led to him going to spy, which led to him being seen, which led to him being killed. And so in the play, the Maynards were seen as like these like senseless, aggressive, like sexual, beastie looking type of women that like kind of were stepping out of their place by like worshiping another god and doing as like what he said instead of what they should have been doing, which is why he was saying like these women need to be locked up and they need to be sold as slaves, they need to be mind slaves, which also kind of shows like how they seen women at this time, because like women should be in the house having children and providing for the children and cooking and cleaning, and that was their role. So I think Elvis was on the cover of this play because he symbolized Dionysus, because they were both like persuasive, good looking men, and like when Elvis was seeing like sing and dance, women would like scream and shout. When Dionysus would shout, the women would go to his commands and do as he say. So my two questions are, out of Dionysus and Pentheus, who do you truly believe is the antagonist, being that they both stepped out of line in their roles? And at what point in the play did you notice that Pentheus' fate was mentioned or therefore foreshadowed? So when was his fate foreshadowed, basically?